Thank you for checking in. Thank you to all the people on Facebook who watch these videos, to the school. You know, I received a couple of really nice emails 2 months ago from a school teacher that uses these in her classroom. Fantastic. That just, wow. Doesn't that make it worthwhile? But people from all over the world. Francis Flavin is here from Taiwan, did you say? I think you said.
No, I'm in Phuket, Thailand.
Thailand. I'm sorry, Thailand. We have let's see, Patrice Wilson from Hawaii is here, Mary Gunn, and friends from Ireland, and plenty of us from the United States, Sean O'Connor, of course. And we're just so thrilled to be wrapping up 2022 with a bit of poetry and conversation among friends. So let's go ahead and get to it. We're going to start with Lynette Esposito. You have to unmute yourself.
Working on it.
There you are.
Hello, Happy New Year to everybody. We need a good new year. Just a little poem. It says, "How I wonder. The unnamed God took his axe and wielded it so hard he hacked the indigo sky. Flinted sparks flew like silver birds, like light in the dark, like stars in flight."
Beautiful. So strong.
And I thought, if I can find it, I've got a real silly poem here. It's a Shakespeare thing, you know, people that love words always love Shakespeare, but I don't know if you'll love this or not. It's really silly. "The party is over," she said, "when I've gone from ravishing beauty to nothing but a maid." He stood at the door and watched her go. The sway of her hips made him long for her so. He did not follow, for his kitchen was clean, and he was tired from the party scene. Tomorrow would give him time to woo the woman of his dreams, his Kate, his shrew. But days became months and months became years, and soon he was an old man with an old man's tears. Time passed and he passed with it. And what of his Kate? Did she wait too? It is said she waited a while and cultivated a lovely smile that attracted a merchant of Venice in a midsummer night's dream. A shrew and a salesman. Does it seem possible?
Thank you for that. Okay, well, after I'm going to make a very short story, and I'll explain that here in a second, and then we'll go to Gloria Caviglia and then Carol Mertz, so you can prepare. You are, in fact, on deck. All right, so there is a new issue that's affecting publishers, and that is artificial intelligence. I'm going to share my screen so you can see what I see. And this is perhaps one of the simplest demonstrations of this. It's called openai.com if you want to play with this. Openai.com. It's completely free. So I'm going to ask Lynette Esposito to unmute herself again for a second.
Okay.
All right, so let's just demonstrate. So give me an animal.
A cat.
A cat, okay. And something you see, something around the house.
Broken treasure.
Broken treasure. That ought to be interesting. Let's just call it treasure, okay? Treasure. All right, so let's ask this thing, write a horror story. Let's give it a genre, right? About a cat. Broken where are we going to say treasure? And it's New Year. Well, winter. Let's call it winter. And see what happens here. And the computer is writing already. It was a cold and bitter winter night, and the snow was falling heavily from the sky. The small village was buried under a blanket of white, and the villagers had retired to their homes to stay warm. But one man was not content to stay inside. He was greedy. He was a greedy and desperate man, always searching for ways to get ahead. And on this particular night, he heard a rumor of a great treasure hidden somewhere in the snowy forests that surrounded the village. Despite the warning of his wife and the pleading of his children, the man set out that night, determined to find the treasure and make his fortune. He trudged through the snow, following the directions he had been given until he came to a clearing in the forest. There, in the middle of the clearing, stood a large tree with a strange symbol carved into its bark. The man knew this was the place he had been searching for, and he eagerly began to dig in the snow at the base of the tree. But as he dug, he heard a soft meowing sound. He turned to see a small black cat, its fur matted and wet from the snow. The man was not a superstitious man, but something about the cat made him uneasy. He tried to ignore it and continued digging, but the meowing only grew louder and more insistent. Finally, the man could take it no longer. He grabbed the cat by the scruff of its neck and threw it to the ground, yelling at it to be quiet. But as he turned back to his treasure hunt, he felt a sudden icy pain in his chest. He looked down to see the black cat standing over him, its eyes glowing with a strange, otherworldly light. And as the man's vision began to fade, he realized that the treasure he had sought was not gold or jewels, but something far more valuable, the loyalty and protection of the mysterious black cat. So, pretty convincing, I think, for for a short story. You could start with something like that, right? And then you could definitely build upon it. Anybody want to unmute themselves and chime in? Did that surprise anybody?
Yes, we've been replaced.
It's horrible.
I mean, as a former teacher, I can't imagine if every student did this. I mean, you know, where's your self, you know, how you feel about yourself as a writer. I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it.
Well,
Hey.
I wanted to demonstrate this because it is very concerning to me. And in a little while later on in the event today, I am going to ask the artificial intelligence to write a poem, and you will probably be pretty surprised at the deftness with it will write poetry. Michael Watterson, thank you for coming in. Debbie Walker-Lass, oh, so great to have you. Thank you for popping in. Let's move on to Gloria Caviglia, please.
Okay, this is a short story, actually kind of a Christmas story. Just on the cusp of being a tween, my Christmas wish list consisted of the usual items that a girl in the 1960s would desire. The latest technology, that being a record player with a needle that automatically dropped onto the vinyl record, a bicycle with 3 speeds, and go-go boots. I'm certain that my siblings had their desired lists as well, but self-absorbed me only remembers my own. One Sunday in late November after Mass, my parents took me and my sister to Mother Cabrini's orphanage in West Park, New York. We had been there several times. The Missionary Sisters of the Sacred Heart were teachers in our parochial school, and they hosted events for the students throughout the year. We were led into a recreational room where there were many children, adults, and nuns engaging in uncomfortable mingling. One nun came up to greet my parents, and they talked as I surveyed the room. I was neither interested nor curious. After juice and a cookie, the nun nodded in the direction of 2 girls and asked me if I would like them to come to my house. I would not have liked that at all, but I vaguely murmured something under my breath, which I'm certain made my point. My parents laughed politely, and then we took our leave. As the week before Christmas drew near, my parents informed us that the 2 girls with whom we had met would be spending Christmas break with us. I was incredulous. 1 whole week? It had to be a joke, but it was not. I'm sorry, guys. Ugh. I can't even turn that off. I'm sorry. They would share my sister's bedroom and she would bunk in with me. I couldn't fathom how this dynamic would play out. What about our traditions with my grandmother and the other family members? Would there be gifts under the tree for them? What would we do for an entire week? Christmas morning came, and with it, loads of presents under the tree. My parents had been generous that year. All of my wish list gifts and more were under the Christmas tree. I had secretly hoped that the girls would get only necessary items, underwear, clothes, maybe some candy. But no, they got dolls, games, clothes, and the older one got a watch, much like the one I received. I was jealous of their gifts, jealous of the way they fawned over my little brother, and jealous of the way my parents treated them. I felt cheated and betrayed. This was my Christmas in my house, and their presents spoiled it. Not once during that week did my parents admonish me for my behavior, which I can assure you wasn't sterling. When it was time for them to return to the orphanage, I was ecstatic. For a while, I let my thoughts wander as to what they might be doing there in the confines of the institution in which they resided. I knew that they had an older sister and a little brother, but in those days, the orphanage was only for girls, and they had no contact with him. Several years later, I had heard that their older sister had been adopted, as had their brother, but to separate families. There was no empathy from me for their lack of being adopted, and so my life went on, and that Christmas became a very dim memory, left in the way back recesses of my mind. 50 plus years later, I continue to be humbled at the gifts my parents so generously shared. Monetary gifts, of course, but the gifts of a safe, warm home surrounded by family are damn priceless. Generosity is paramount to living your best life. Thank you.
Very nice. And do you have a poem?
I do, but I'll save that for another time because it's kind of a downer. You know, I think this might be better. By the way, that is a completely true story, every word of it.
Okay. All right. So we're going to do Carol Mertz, and then Sean has to leave a little earlier today. So we're going to do Sean O'Connor after Carol. Okay. Carol?
Okay, I have a wintry verdant rose. It's ekphrastic after a painting by Natasha Graham. The woman stands enwrapped by her feminine nature, where the florals end and her female self begins, we cannot discern. The two evolve as one, indistinguishable as snow on the mountain's rocky scarf, its gray face painted white by sunlight's morning sheen. We see her posed as from a bath, hidden or exposed, her secrets hers alone. We see resolute nature in her beauty and power in her feminine tone. We ask that she remain singular and alone, not yet touching or touched by another, a lonely, blooming, wintry, verdant rose.
Very nice.
And then another one is called Invited to Linger. I have used certain words tentatively. At the time I needed them most, they arrived unannounced and furnished their meanings more lavishly than I could have imagined, decorated my language room more colorfully than I deserved, and sang more deep-throated than I dared. They entered right on time. I used some of them nimbly, spoke some firmly. Sometimes I tamed them, let them subtly drop, sensing this is the word most needed at this time, in just this most unremarkable place. I may be allowed to use these words again or not. I may simply recall them, left at others' doorsteps, where they await the open door, expecting welcome, their meanings taken in, and invited to linger a while.
Very nice.
Thank you.
That's a beautiful poem. Okay, so Sean O'Connor, then Ken Jones, and then Mary Gunn. That's the order that's coming up on deck here. Sean. You have to unmute yourself, friend.
I'll get my act together. Thank you, everybody, and Happy New Year to you all. This morning at 6:45 Irish time, my friend Robert passed away in a hospice, and I'd like to read. He obviously wasn't looking forward to next year. So I'd like to read two short haibun that I think, well, for me, resonate with him anyway, and he's passing. This is from my latest book, The God of Bones, and this is The God of Bones 4, and it's for Robert. The God of Bones 4. In keeping with the nobility of their way, take the hip bones of the wanderer, where the weight of their worldly belongings were born. Ilium, ischium and pubis, the sacrum and the coccyx. Keep too the unifying pubic symphysis. Wipe them free of all dust and hide them in plain sight, for the wanderer leaves this life without a trace. This nothingness world, in all its insouciance, slow falling snow. Thank you. And the second piece I'd like to read for Robert is called The Man Who Is a Silhouette. It's a haibun with the haiku first. The man who is a silhouette, over a turlock, a cloud of migrating birds, their murmurations. At first, the man who is a silhouette looks like a small hole in the landscape, where this old dirt road touches the sky. Slowly, as we walk toward each other, his shape, black as night, becomes the vertical shadow of a man. A shadow with no shadow. Still far from me, he speaks. Despite our distance, the man who is a silhouette sounds close, as if he's standing before me, close as if inside me, intimate and reassuring. The man who is a silhouette uses no words. He speaks in the language of tones, with all the harmonics of the world, every vibration. Each thing and non-thing that moves is his voice inside me. Gentle creaks in trees, slow moving ice, the movement of wings, a heave of sea, wind from other lands. Somewhere, a hazelnut drops. As he nears, the man who is a silhouette, a dot appears on his chest, tiny and white, a pure, pure white, unmoving in the center of his blackness. We walk into each other, or rather, I walk into him. And walking into the man who is a silhouette, into his darkness, everything is still. A universe, almost empty but for a dot, alone and distant, a single star.
Wow,
Thank you.
that is very, very powerful. Sorry for your loss. For those who are watching on Facebook, we have a chat running that you cannot see, and a lot of people have expressed their condolences there. You know, I liked the hazelnut, the single moment. You know, that life goes on, and like a nut or any seed, there is this. There's more to come, right? So if it means anything, you know, your friend has definitely left an impact that will probably go on and on forever, like we all do, that whole butterfly wing thing. So that's fantastic. Okay, Ken Jones, please.
everybody.
Hey, Ken.
Hey, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to leave soonish because I'm on Greenwich Mean Time here, so we're a bit closer to New Year. So I'm going to go out and party, I think. So I've got a poem, only one, and I don't know what you were doing 10 years ago, but whatever it is, it's out there because the light from whatever we were doing is reflected, the sounds that we make, if it's electronic, is going out at the speed of light. And whatever we did 10 years ago is now 10 light years away. And there's a star system called Epsilon Eridani, is 10 and a bit light years away. So this is called 10 light years away. Downtown, the cars stream south on Oak. Lights like bright water. Remind me where I am, here again. Liquid is only liquid while the photons are close enough together, bouncing back and forth, illuminating everything in their path. Light is only light, after all. But my past is now way beyond the Epsilon Eridani system and still going. Meanwhile, on Oak, the cars stream south as if nothing had happened. Lights like bright water. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Lights like bright water. Boy, that's a beautiful ending. So that it is. I mean, that's such a perfect choice of words. I don't think you could have replaced it with anything and held that same meaning. It's fantastic. Did you have another one, Ken?
No, that's all I've got, Glenn. Thank you very much, though. Thank you for letting me in.
Oh, thank you for coming. Really appreciate every voice today, and always. Thank you all so
And
much.
Happy New Year to everybody.
Happy New Year to you. Okay, Mary Gunn.
Thanks, Glenn, and hello to everybody else there. I've got two haiku. The first one is a one-line haiku, and it goes like this. Winter solstice, the long shadow cast by her headstone. I'll read that again. Winter solstice, the long shadow cast by her headstone. The second one is a three-line haiku. An elbow bump from the hospital consultant, lengthening days. An elbow bump from the hospital consultant, lengthening days. Both of those are published haiku. The first one was published in a journal called Blythe Spirit, and the second one in a journal called Present, both in the UK. And that's the end of my reading. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. But they work well as a set too, I think. That
Yes,
whole length,
one looks back and one looks forward.
Yeah, exactly. And that lengthening thing. And that first the first poem, so quiet, and you can just get lost in that image. That's just beautiful. That just shows the strength of your work. Okay,
Which one are you
Patrice.
talking about? The first one?
Yeah, the first one. I mean, they're both good. I prefer the first one, but yeah, such a great contribution. Thank you for sharing that.
Welcome.
Patrice Wilson, please.
Hello, everybody. Just one comment about the AI. The thing wasn't really that well written. I thought of Snoopy's at his typewriter at the beginning, writing it was a dark and stormy night. The
Yeah.
cliche. And then the end didn't come together for me. I didn't know where the cat came from or how it was protecting him. So anyway.
No, absolutely great observation. I mean, but also I think we can think in terms of this is the first step, right? This is a new thing. This is I mean, it's only going to get better, right? And you have millions of people using it and correcting it every day. I think it'll look very different next year than it looks this year. So
wow. Yeah, it's basically problematic, I would say.
Yeah, problematic. Problematic. I mean, and the same thing with the poetry you'll see a little bit later. I'm not in danger of accepting any of them anytime soon, but
Mhm,
maybe next year, you know.
mhm. I see. Okay, I too have two short poems. The first one I wrote in a haiku style, and the second one is tanka, syllabically anyway. Um, they're called, the first one is called Good News. Snow flickering in streetlight, children's clear treble voices brighten long, cold nights. Originally, the title was Carolers, but I changed it. Good news. Snow flickering in street light. Children's clear treble voices brighten long, cold nights. Thank you. Good news, Hawaiian style. Here come baseball caps, bright shirts, shorts, ukulele, eyes singing mirth and glee. Long after sunset, holiday light. Good news, Hawaiian style. Here come baseball caps, bright shirts, shorts, ukulele eyes, singing mirth and glee. Long after sunset, holiday light. That's it. Thank you.
I love how just the beginning, when you say Hawaiian style, it just pulls all of those visions in a new direction for me. Just fantastic.
Oh,
Really,
thanks.
really, really neat. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. Happy New Year to everyone.
Happy New Year. Okay, we're going to move on to James Bethel, please. If anybody needs to leave early or anything like that, please send me a private note. James, are you in here?
Yeah, I had to unmute myself. I guess I unmuted myself. I'm not sure, did I?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, there we go. I have two poems for you. The first one is titled Treasure Islands. Somewhere, someone is praying for things most of us take for granted. People and things in our lives that bring happiness, joy, freedom, peace. We here in the Northern Hemisphere are celebrating the return of longer daylight after the long stillness and renewal gifted to us by the darkness. How often, though, we forget that while creation's watercourse moves in silence and shadow to impregnate our future, it is simultaneously forging ahead, and the bright light and songs of the present in our brothers and sisters' Southern Hemispheric neighborhoods. For millennia, this time of year has been sacred to human beings and probably to all sentience. Some of us believe that with the ancients, that a window opens between the solstice and the new year worlds. This was and remains a time when people create magic while walking between those worlds with poems and songs about belief. But what if what we had right now was enough? An ancient Tibetan proverb answers, being satisfied is like having a treasure in the palm of your hand. This one is from a collection entitled Halloween Songs, two of which have found space on the pages of previous prolific quarterlies. It was written a few years ago, and I was going to use it as a Thanksgiving poem, but it works just as well this time of year. The title of it is The Truth About Dubuque. Crook, Colorado in December is probably more than a Texaco station draped in plastic tinsel where a Vietnam refugee bound for Des Moines took a coffee break with the American stranger headed for Dubuque. While Livingston Taylor sang on the radio with the vacuum cleaner, "What are you doing in a place like this?" blonde. Oh, she was married to the dude who pumped our gas. But you'd never be able to tell any of this by any of us. The truth about Gothenburg, Nebraska, was found at the Dunn Roman Motel. It was a fine food homestead kind of a place where Gothenburgians and Gothenburgites gathered at the edge of the highway on Saturday night in polyester suits worn on such occasions as this Tennessee Ernie Ford Christmas Carol Gothenburg Saturday night, while the world slipped silently nightly by, just like in Crook, Colorado, only different. Here's a footnote. Trying to wake up in Kearney, Nebraska, is like trying to wake up anyplace else, maybe a little more difficult. At breakfast, there were eggs, 2 counter stools to the right. She had French toast. Her hair was a slept-in 5-strand braid. There were 2 on each side and another in the back. She looked French, too. Well, she was, as they say in these parts, fetching. But she looked at me as if I was the one who needed care. A town these eyes had never seen had welcome home, each letter on its own square, strung on a string in an apartment, across a kitchen on New Year's Eve. There was a cashmere guest robe, some coffee brandy, and I love you balloons on the bed. He had put them there for her. And to this day, I am grateful they had left them there for me. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Very nice. Okay, so where are we going here? So strong, always so strong. All right, I'm going to divert over to artificial intelligence for a couple of minutes, and then we're going to go with Robert Baldwin, then Dennis Smallsby, and Doug Van Hooser. So those are the ones that are coming up on deck. Delightful, yeah. Bob commented that that last work was, yeah, absolutely. Okay, let me share my screen. And let's see what the artificial intelligence does for the song community. So somebody said something about Bob Newhart monkeys in the style of Shakespeare. So, or in Shakespeare. So I wrote the question for the AI, write a song about Bob Newhart monkeys in the style of Shakespeare. I have no, who knows what's going to happen here, but oh, Bob Newhart, master of mirth and wit, your comedic timing is truly a hit. Your show was a joy, a true delight. Watching it made our day seem just right. The chorus, Bob Newhart, comedian supreme. We're glad you're part of our TV screens and hearts, Bob Newhart, Bob Newhart. Verse 2, well, let us not forget the monkeys so dear who brought laughter and cheer. With their antics and pranks, they stole the show. Their boundless energy, it seemed to grow. The chorus again, Bob Newhart, comedian supreme. We're glad you're part of our TV screens and hearts, Bob Newhart, And the bridge, your show is a treasure, a classic to keep, a joy to watch as we sat and did sleep. We'll always remember the laughs we had, thanks to you, Bob, and the monkeys, so glad. And the song's outro reads, Bob Newhart, comedian supreme. We're glad you're part of our TV screens and hearts, Bob Newhart, Wow, I mean, it's a song, I guess. I mean, put the right music to it. Gloria gives it a thumb down. Lots of some people are not
Good Lord,
fans.
it's worse than rap.
Worse than rap, okay. It's
I don't think anything's worse than rap, but that was pretty boring. That poem was kind of boring.
well, it was a song, but yeah, it was a
Oh, it's a song. Yeah,
yeah,
okay.
that was a song. I don't know. I mean, maybe if you were if I were more talented and I could play guitar and sing that, you guys might feel differently. I don't know.
Well, I
But
think
it,
Bob Dylan would cringe.
I should have said in the style of Bob Dylan, right? I mean, I could spend a lot of time doing this. Just
You got a guitar?
not handy, no. Okay,
Simulate it.
simulate it. There you go. Air guitar. I mean, I gotta say, I'm concerned about this, and I think that in a couple of years' time, things will probably look different in the AI world, and I'm not going to say that it's going to put us out of threaten our art. I mean, there's the integrity of human voices that if you have a gatekeeper that cares, can create a community of people to share things from the heart, and it's more meaningful, certainly more meaningful, you know, even if the words are equivalent. I think there's something different there, but it's strange. It's really strange.
Glenn, could I say something?
Of course.
First, you've hit the nail on the head when you said about the human voice, because as you know, every writer strives to develop their own voice. And that's what's going to be missing here, because I don't know about you, but when I have a submission opening, a window opening for a month tonight, and as I read through all this material, which I'm going to be doing for a month, every now and again you hit a piece, and what hits you is that it feels like the person is talking to you in their writing. You hear the person in the work somehow, and that's the voice happening. And the second major ingredient that it will always lack, I think, is emotional resonance. That's really hard to generate in this way, because so what it's doing is it's using the craft and technique, but without the elements of voice and human and emotional resonance. That's where it's going to struggle. So I'm not, what I would be fearful of is convincing craft and technique, which we get anyway, but it's still what really brings things over the edge, or what makes something really work, are those two factors of emotional resonance that you can imagine readers responding to. Will it bring a tear to your eye is the question.
That's a really legitimate question. And I think that it'll probably be a long time before a piece that's like James' work there, that's long and thoughtful, is convincing enough and poignant enough to bring a tear to your eye. But think about the short forms. You tell the thing to make you 100 haiku about a subject, and all you have to do is read through the haiku, and there's going to be some gold nuggets in there, I think. You know, maybe 90 of them are bad, 10 of them are good, and one is like, wow, I can't believe a machine wrote that. And you had no investment. You did it in 2 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Bob shakes his head no, doesn't think that it can create a haiku that's convincing.
Well, I don't know how many of you have read Doug Adams' Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, but Vogon poetry comes to mind.
Vogon poetry is only the second worst poetry in the world. And it died when the planet Earth was destroyed by some Patrick McGonagall, I think his name was, from Scotland, was the worst poet in the world. Vogon poetry was only second. There's a program on BBC Radio, which is quite interesting. It's a science program. It's called The Infinite Monkey Cage. So that's quite interesting. Just thought I'd mention that while we're talking about an infinite number of monkeys typing Shakespeare.
Right.
I have to leave. Thank you so much.
Okay. Oh, thank you, Ken, for coming in. Happy New Year to you.
You too. Cheers. Bye, everybody.
We got time for a real quick story. There's one about Frank Lloyd Wright being interrupted at a build site by some pompous, wealthy person who'd hired him, demanding to see blueprints. And Wright allegedly turned him in the pouring rain and said, "Blueprints? haven't even built a damn thing yet.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, Robert Baldwin.
Hi, everybody. Happy New Year. In some ways, this is the perfect transition because I am a musician and my two poems are about music. So we'll see if it passes the test. I'm also the person who wrote that comment about the Bob Newhart bit. And the punchline goes, he finds the room full of monkeys and they finally think they have something. They pull it out and it's to be or not to be. That is the Gazornenplatz. It's like so close, but almost there. So the two poems that I have for you today, the first one is about snow, and I'm joining you from Utah, where Alta is supposed to get 6 feet of snow in the next 2 days. So it's I guess timely with that. It appeared in the 2018 summer issue of Poetry Quarterly, and strangely enough, it was chosen by a composer as lyrics for a song cycle that we premiered here in Utah this last spring. So we will see if it passes the lyric test. It is not a rhyming poem, but it was an art song approach to it. So this is Snow Sounds. I dreamt of snow, not a forbidding scene, but a clean white powder, that trademark of the West, 10 to 12 inches covering all. Every telephone wire, fence post, branch, and roof sparkled in hazy, veiled sunshine. A deeper gaze revealed patterns, emerging motifs, normally expressed as music, alive with inaudible rhythmic clarity, subdivisions and time signatures, articulated reticulations, 7/8, 4/4, 3/4, 9/8, triplets and 16th notes, allegro, largo, accelerando, rallentando, untold expressions of pulse and tempo, silent and still, yet bursting with potential. Revelations and fresh blankets and whorls of nature's new composition, a new, unique masterpiece in white, the underlying beauty enhanced by a sudden realization: music is everywhere. Now there's only one thing left to do: listen. Thank you. And the next one is a completely different style, which was inspired by a teenager looking at a T-shirt that I had on that was a T-shirt about a famous blues artist, and he asked if that was a rock band, and I just thought I just have to kind of go with this one. So this is called No Kid, It's Just the Blues. I had to tell him about the voodoo that the blues do at the hoodoo. Ripped raw like a saw, I had to jaw and remind him of the law, that Blind Lemon, Bessie, and Muddy were crying the heebie-jeebie long before AC/DC, as they'd sing and BB'd zing on the strings of Lucille. The real deal, no mere meal, but a feast of the senses, whether out riding fences or mixing your tenses, or sitting alone with your heart bleeding out for this art because she left you, you old fart, for a change and a range with more depth than 3 chords should allow, trapped behind bars like 12 dying stars or fireflies in cheap mason jars for all to see. That's what it's all about. It's the blues, man. Thank you.
That's fun. Kind of reminds me a little bit of this poetry form called flarf that they teach in some colleges, where you Google something like music, like, and then you take from the search results little bits that sound good together, and you put it together and create this bigger than that piece. It's so musical. Did you guys get that? How just like it was just so like it was great. That was great. I could hear that again, and I will.
Could you read it again, please?
Yeah, that sounds
Sure.
nice. Let's do that. Would you mind?
Sure. Well, thank you. No, kid, it's just the blues. I had to tell him about the voodoo that the blues do at the hoodoo. Ripped raw like a saw, I had to jaw and remind him of the law, that Blind Lemon and Bessie and Muddy were crying the heebie-jeebie long before AC/DC, and they'd sing and BB'd zing on the strings of Lucille. The real deal, no mere meal, but a feast of the senses, whether out riding fences or fixing your tenses, as you'd sit alone with your heart, bleeding out for this art because she left you, you old fart, for a change and a range with more depth than the 3 chords should allow, trapped behind bars like 12 dying stars, or fireflies in cheap mason jars for all to see. That's what it's about. It's the blues, man.
Yeah, I like the line a lot. That's more than 3 chords will allow. It's because,
The
you're
blue
building something bigger than the words. It's
and the 3
fantastic.
chords. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
very nice. Dennis
Thank you,
Malsby,
Rick.
please. Hi, Dennis.
Hi, Glenn. Couple of
Hap-
short poems from my book, Heart Songs. It came out in July. And I think Bob and I got mesmerized by the same subject. As I'll be doing something about the weather that we've just had recently in the Northern Hemisphere. And those of you that have experienced it will probably identify with the poem. And those of you that are in warmer climes, maybe you'll get a feel for what it's like to be involved in these. It's entitled Polar Vortex. Boots kick up rhinestone snow grit. Expelled breath freezes. Hard rime frost stiffens the fur of my parka hood. Arctic needles tattoo nose, cheeks. I hawk and spit. Frozen phlegm rattles over white crust. A dervish whirlwind churns ice spangles up sleeves and pant legs. Knots of flakes cloud my glasses. Blue crystal fangs gnaw fingers, toes. An ice-braided demon wind shrieks, I'll kill you if I can. And the second one is a Senryu, and it's something that maybe a lot of you have experienced. Stabbing my heel, a yellow Lego hides in the carpet. Stabbing my heel, a yellow Lego hides in the carpet.
Thank you for that. The surprise of that, I'll kill you if I can kind of thing. That surprise of that at the end, that was great. Thank you for that.
Dennis, minus 35 is real.
We have minus 40 here in Iowa wind chill, and the dunes were up so high I couldn't get out of the garage.
Oh my. Okay, Doug Van Hooser, and then Jenny Pina. Virginia, if you like, if you prefer. Is she still here? Yeah, there she is. Doug,
Hi,
unmute yourself.
everyone, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
The first poem's about the past year, we'll say. It's entitled Birth. This year has been cud chewing, a lonely, slow grind of the mind's teeth. Zoom in and all I see is shadow. What cast the shadow missing? What took years to build dissipated in fog? Did I move and miss the seasons? My hands asleep, my eyes myopic, the only scent rotting wood. It doesn't matter how deep the snow is or that the streets are plowed and salted. There is no place to migrate. I think I am hypnotized and have been told to be a totem pole. I stand unblinking, erect in one place. My carvings tell you, this is my story. I was a tree in the forest, and even though I did not fall, I made a noise and you did not hear. Can I tune into another channel, binge on it like a snack until sated? No, I nod off and slumber as the days mound into weeks and weeks beget months, a stillborn stasis. If only this morning's sickness was a symptom of being pregnant with hope, a cry to announce a new start, unmask my lethargy, vaccinate against ennui. I must dissolve my entropy, my inertia, take a bite of energy, lift from the shallows like a heron, wing my way skyward into the cumulus accented blue.
Very nice. That poem really lends itself well to being read out loud, It sounds good.
Well, thanks. Second poem is entitled Hike. No worn path zigs and zags through the thin and thick oaks, the shagbark hickory's panting tongues. Broken lichen branches sprawl atop tree root beds. The year's rings seep back into earth. It's the war for sun to chlorophyll the forest pulse. I meander through the underbrush. Without exposed trodden earth, I am forced to pick and choose where to put a foot down, break the dead or trample the live, make choices liable to trip and stumble. My balance teeters and totters. The wood's deciduous survivors push toward the sky, feed on decay. I hunger for a fresh new growth, seek bright illumination, a sun to nourish my leaves, roots, and bark-shrouded soul. Thanks, everybody.
Very, very nice. A lot of imagery there, and I like the idea of reminding the reader that in the part of the natural order of things, there are those things which feed on decay, right? And there's so much that can be said about that, and so I mean it's transcendental, really. I mean, you could apply that so many ways, and it's that's some deep stuff. Great job, Doug. Good job. Okay, Ginny.
Thanks, Glenn. I'm just going to read one because it's a bit of a longer prose poem. It's called Leisure Lanes. Tagging along with my dad to pay a bill at Hummelstown Fuel Oil, the ad reached out and grabbed me. Leisure Lanes Youth Bowling Leagues forming now. Dad sought the advice of the ancient guy inside the fuel oil office, whose scowling face made me think of a totem pole character. Pete knew everything about everything. They don't have pool tables or smoking inside Leisure Lanes, do they, Pete? Just lanes, all in the up and up, and the deal was sealed. I lived the joy of entering Leisure Lanes nearly every Saturday for 6 years. Dad was the one to drop me off and collect me because my mother couldn't fathom why a girl would want to bowl. Dad always had a parting comment. Don't eat anything mushy from the vending machine. Don't snack after you stick your fingers in one of those rental balls. Don't throw anything heavier than 12 pounds. Get me a hot dog with yellow mustard and don't tell your mother. Once inside Leisure Lanes, the real world disappeared. A dim, windowless banquet-sized hall with beautiful, gaudy carpet. Black balls gliding down oiled lanes as if there was no traction, no earthly gravity. After a while, the crashing pins sounded like music, crystal goblets toasting, theater applause. I loved the rental shoes damp from the last occupant, scuffed, worn, ill-fitting, something I only wore there. The air vent on the ball return that dried my sweaty hand. There is not much else to do inside a bowling alley except bowl. That's the beauty of it. 10 frames, a finite set of chances. I did collect my share of Wild West charms, Super Balls, and mood rings from the gumball machines, and eventually I became a reasonably good bowler. Still, I face days of gutter ball games, and isn't that life? There is a Staples now where Leisure Lanes used to be. I went there recently. It was an empty feeling place, but I managed a few phantom practice throws in aisle 5 between the printer cartridges and the office trash cans. When an employee approached to see if I needed help, I wanted to ask, where's Frank? Frank, the maintenance guy at Leisure Lanes. If your ball got stuck, your lane wouldn't reset its pins, find Frank. He spoke in 2-word phrases. Don't run, no shouting, whose coat? After working in the bathroom, toilets fixed. If he had to fiddle with a malfunctioning gumball machine, wrong coin. If you needed change, front desk. Heavy snow falling, closing early. The last Saturday of my last bowling league at Leisure Lanes, Frank was standing by the front door swilling a bottle of 7-Up. Frank liked 7-Up. And because he knew everyone's parent, he glanced at me, pointed to a powder blue 1965 Impala idling in the parking lot. Dad's here.
Wow, that's so good. So good. You know, the very first poetry reading that you came to, I just knew you were going to be one of my favorites to hear read. And I think I might even have said that in the second or
Thanks,
third
Glenn.
time that you came. There's this verisimilitude of your work that is so, it's so strong by the details, you know, lane 5 and those things. There's enough detail that we import so much to your work that we feel like we know your family, because, you know, you read about family a lot. And these experiences, there's something we can grab out of, you know, these little moments of putting your hand in the hair dryer at the right. I mean, we know what that feels like, and we all import that to your work. It's so strong. It's just fantastic. Thank you so much for
Thank
that.
you.
That's one of the strongest pieces I've heard in a while, and it's just wonderful to wrap up this year with something like that. Not that other ones don't stand up to it, but it's just, wow, good job. Thank you for that. Okay, Francis Flavin.
Okay. Greetings, everyone from Thailand. It's 2 a.m. here, so I'm sort of wondering if AI will ever get to write anything when they're exhausted or intoxicated, but we'll see, I guess, in the future. And I have had breakfast, a memorable breakfast in Kearney, Nebraska, so that's a fond memory there. And I'm in Southeast Asia. I'm trying to do a follow-up book after my poetry quarter poem of Rain in Pampanga, whether it's a novel or a hybrid of poetry and short stories, we'll see. But I have 3 very short ones, trying to share Thailand with everybody that's maybe in a little bit snowy situation. First one, Ottoman Cave, rock womb, mother sea pulsing. Ottoman Cave, rock womb, mother sea pulsing. Second one, verdant layers, suffocating, thriving. Verdant layers, suffocating, thriving. And the last one, a little snarky, war sanctuary, tropical absolution, buttocks and vodka. War sanctuary, tropical absolution, buttocks and vodka. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I did feel like the second one only really worked with the first one. I don't know if it was a standalone piece that would have held up for me, but I love how sparse that work is. It's just so much with so few words, and that's the power of those short pieces, isn't it? It just takes us somewhere. It's fantastic. I think I might be one of the biggest I don't know, enthusiasts about short work. I go to a lot of journals, you know, Blackbird and stuff, and I go out and I read these journals, and I'm always digesting this, you know, this poetry, and so few places seem to really embrace these short forms. You don't see them that much. I don't know why. I don't know, but they're no lesser quality work. They're hard to do, and to do as well as you do them is, you know, it's a real testament to the experience that you put into this, you know. That doesn't just happen. That doesn't just happen overnight. Bob Moreland, sorry, can't read my own writing.
Hi.
Hi, Bob. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year from Wisconsin, where it actually warmed up and the snow melted so we could get ready for the new. I have 2. This first is called New Year's Day. The Arctic wind whisked across the naked prairie, stirring granular frostedness from unfettered snow. The rising sun warms until the wind turns the morning coffee in the man's mustache to brown icicles. The close-cut schnauzer tugs at the leash, exploring the last night's coyote scents and all the doggy news. The man lingers, a bone bruise in one leg making him limp, when last August he walked with gusto born of summer purpose. He pauses but a moment, grabs her piled up newspapers, and walks past her window where she sleeps peaceful. The patchwork quilt stirs in fanciful dreams of a dance that is yet to come. He ambles to the back of her cottage, places the newspapers under a piece of cordwood, sips the last gulp of his coffee from his mug, and turns back out to the street, leaving her in her reverie. As the silver-haired dog beckons, he walks into his future. Thank you. This last one, I found out about 2 hours ago that the cousin of a very dear friend had been killed in Kiev. So I will end you on a sober note. Glenn, I actually emailed you the poem. There is a link at the end if anyone would care to respond. It tells you how to help. Rosamance, Soya, Ukraine. New Year's Eve in Moscow. The streets are lit. The stores are full. People shop, getting ready to welcome the year Ukraine is removed from maps. The interviews are patriotic. Z is everywhere. Zelensky on a poster, dressed in a Nazi uniform. Rodinya. Kherson Oblast, Ukraine. Christmas Eve. Kamikaze drone hits the market where families shop, killing many. LinkedIn censors pictures of bloody dead children. For the last week, 100 missiles a day crowd the skies, falling like rain. New Year's Eve. People huddle in the subway, familiar sirens wail. How was she in the wrong place at the right time? I will never know. 500 pounds of hell ended her life at 32. Was it quick? Did she suffer? My dear professor's friend's cousin is no more. As you watch the ball drop from Times Square tonight, it's 7 in the evening in Kyiv. Sirens will begin anew as a maniac attempts to exterminate Ukraine. Evil prospers when good men do nothing. If we do not learn from the past, we are doomed to repeat it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Not much to say about that one. It's
Sorry,
very
it was the grief of actually I had 2 milquetoast poems and that grew out of the grief of finding out that when you put faces on things, Stalin used to say, one death is a tragedy, a million is a statistic. Happy New Year.
okay. James Nicola, please.
I knew I'd be following that. So I was picking up on earlier today when we started with Lynette's silliness. I have 2 poems, and the first one is silly, called Living on Love Alone It just got published and posted last week in Isel, ISELE, quarterly, or Isel magazine. It's called both if you want to find it and send them something later. Living on Love Alone. I used to live on love alone, but found it was a risky plan. Since then, my belly's overgrown from cakes and tarts, parfaits, and flan. My edges, rounded by desserts which sweeten and expand a man, can curb whatever ails or hurts as well as your romances can. By answering my hunger pains and filling up my paunch, my heart feels full, for gastronomic gains are analgesic too, in part. And there's no fickleness in lunch, nor heartbreak in a chicken wing. What's more, I've found the more I munch, the less I crave that other thing. Though sometimes when I first awaken, I do feel a throbbing there. I cure the thing with eggs and bacon, toast and jam, a healthy share. In other words, rather than melting away by living on only love, I allow myself to seize the day, a dumpling and a slice of pie. You've gotten far too thin, I feel, but what have you got planned tonight? Well, why don't you join me for a meal? Then you'll start to feel all right.
That's great.
Little,
There is no
little
heartache,
silliness,
no
slightly
heartache in
because
a
this is
chicken wing.
no heart right. And slightly inspired by my cousin Bob Davis, who used the line living on love alone. So I'll send him this link. Hi, Bob, whose birthday is Christmas. And partly inspired formally by Maya Angelou's The Soul Food Diner, if you know that poem. Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah. So anyway, God bless. But thank you, Isel Magazine, for picking it up. Oh my gosh, you crazy people. The next is one of my many sonnets that I got published, and this is going to be in next year's Garfield Lake review. I just checked, it's not there yet, but if you check the 22 issue, I have another poem in that. So this is a preview of Garfield Lake's next issue, and it's called Air, and it's a love sonnet, straight sonnet and everything. Air. The very breath you'd summon to say no would be enough to snuff a match's flame. However, should you also say my name, the very word might act as one might blow on embers, stoking smolderings to blaze. Not doing anything could do the same thing, though, so no, you wouldn't be to blame, not knowing how I burn. One of these days, I'll risk the fires of hell itself, aware that only one of two fates could apply, should I tell you how. For such honest air, such breath, will only cause a fire to die or catch and grow. Though once the deed is done, two flames, like two breaths, may grow into one. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Thank you.
And being wonderful, and Happy New Year to all. And
Happy
bless
New Year.
everyone in the Ukraine. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. And Bob, I've recovered for a second, so that was put a little lump in my throat there. I will read the email that you sent. Thank you. And if I can post anything positive to encourage others to do anything, I will. Okay. All right. So I'm going to revisit for the last time the AI, and this time based on the last conversation we had during this reading, I am going to tell it to write a haiku, and then I would love to hear from any of you if you think that it would have fooled you if you were in the editor's shoes. And then we'll hear from Michael Watterson and Debbie Walker-Lass, and that'll wrap up the event today. Okay, so let me share my screen. And I have concocted a little exercise here. I'll paste it in. So what I've done here is, and I'll read it for you, Mary, because you can't see the page. Write 10 haiku about a quiet winter moment in nature. All right, that is what we are going to tell it to do so that it knows the parameters. And we shall see what happens here. Now remember, these are maybe good, maybe not be good, but we will see. It's writing. It's at number 5. It's proceeding. It's already written 7 poems, 8, 9, and I'll begin reading at number 1. It is finished. Snow-covered branches, quiet winter's tranquil scene, nature's peaceful rest. The second one, frosty morning air, winter's stillness all around, solitude's embrace. Number 3, silent winter silent winter woods, nature's slumber deep and calm, peaceful solitude. It's not too bad. I mean, I'm kind of surprised. Cold winter's night, quiet solitude outside, nature's beauty reigns. Number 5, snow-covered fields stretch, winter's quietude profound, nature's tranquil bliss. Number 6, solemn winter's dusk, nature's silence all around, peaceful solitude. Number 7, crisp winter's morn, nature's stillness all around, quiet solitude. Oh, interesting. It went from peaceful solitude to quiet solitude. It's running out of ideas, I think. Frozen winter pond, nature's quietude profound, solitude's embrace. Number 9, winter's silent night, nature's peaceful solitude, tranquil, calm, and still. And number 10, snow-covered landscape, winter's quietude profound. It seems to like that. Nature's peaceful rest. All right, what do you guys think? Any of those would fool you into at least thinking it was a person?
I think there's 2 problems with them. One is that the first 2 lines don't really set us up. They tend to be abstract. The last line is, rarely an aha moment. So these are not ones I think most people would want to publish.
To me, it seems like I write a lot of haiku while I'm hiking. Haiku, get it? And the what I sometimes do is like I'll spin something around, right? And it almost seems like that's what it's doing. It's taking an idea, inserting another word, or flipping something around to basically give you the same thing. I guess in the end, you have to decide which one is the best. I mean, you have to make a decision. That's a human decision.
These are doing a lot of telling and not a lot of showing.
That's a good observation.
I had to give up ephemeral light. Hopefully it'll give up solitude at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the parameters that I gave it. Maybe it would have done better had I written it differently.
I wrote in the chat, they're mathematically correct, but they have no imagination. And they don't appeal to senses. That is one of the things as poets, that as you draw people in, the more senses you use, the more they identify with the poem.
So I wonder if there's an algorithm for specific catchwords, like winter's solitude. I mean, they use that word, or quietude, several times. Did you give it too many commands? You want 10 of them, so the algorithm just takes the words and superimposes them. I don't know.
It's a good question. It's a legitimate question, because maybe it gathered a sampling of work and then it only drew from that sampling to do all 10. I think that's what you're saying.
Many of the ancient haiku forms began with an observation about nature in the first 2 lines, and then did an unexpected jump into some correlate of the human condition. So that's totally missing here, obviously.
Yeah, well, yeah, maybe. I don't know. Definitely it's more on point when it does that, but not all haiku do that.
No, that's true. Yeah, I'm just, from the ancient forms.
Yeah. It does grab some interesting ideas there. Snow-covered fields stretch.
Yeah.
That's a great opening line, Winter's quietude profound, but then the third line lets you down. And I think Dennis is right. It's missing the balance that brings it to some, I don't know if epiphany is the right word, but there's no punch to it, there's nothing that brings it fully around and leaves you in this transcended sort of state, there's no impressive compression.
And there's no aha moment that
right
takes you from the poet to the reader.
Yeah, you're not seeing the world in a different way, is it?
It doesn't flip you, right?
Right, exactly. So you're not seeing through a poet's interpretation, so that the reader is gifted something, some new way of looking at the world, or some new lens, or something, or new insight about the poet. It's kind of dead inside a little bit. Yeah, good point. Still, though, I think for the first iteration of this kind of thing, it's pretty tricky. And I will tell you this without mentioning any names, because I don't want to embarrass anybody. But I know that I know some publications that publish work that's no better than this.
Yeah.
Some entry level stuff where they take a lot of pieces, maybe just to sell a lot or something. I don't know. Very interesting. Okay. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody, for chiming in. It's a wonderful conversation to have. Michael Watterson, please.
Yes, thanks, Glenn. Happy New Year, everybody. I apologize. My video is being feisty on the last day of the year here. So just want to read one today. It's a poem that was just published by Baltimore University's literary magazine. It's called Crab Cannon. I was born in the month of the crab, so I know how life goes sideways. In the myth, on a mission for Hera, Karkinos, a crab, attacks her stepson Heracles. Devotion to the goddess gets the crustacean crushed under the strong man's heel. To honor his courage, Hera transmogrifies her crusty pet to a cluster of stars scuttling across the sky. Astrology tells me this connect the dots cartoon colors my nature. Tracing the silhouette of my spirit, I can't deny my heart is often in retreat, that I suffer crab mentality and sea change moods, now blue, now green, with claws beneath the waves. A telescope reveals the horoscope shell game. Born from the womb of stars, nebulous neuronets are coded to configure familiar features, a trait that led Hippocrates to tag a tumor cancer. The crabby queen's jealousy metastasized. Some crystal gazers dub my birth sign Moonchild to water down the decapod's dread genus. I was born in the month of the crab. What I say, I walk back. And I would say, thanks. I would say that a fairer test in the future would be to mix in AI poems with human generated poetry and see how successful you are at picking out which is which.
Oh, wow. That's such a good idea. Maybe I'll do something like that just for fun, put it on the website and let people, without telling them.
Yeah, I think that would be a more scientific test to see how good people are at spotting the I think the real I think it's going to be a great problem for as someone mentioned earlier, for teachers and scholarly work, because especially scholarly work can be at this stage very, very difficult to spot what is human generated versus what is computer generated. So
Yeah, well, and this is just one
Building
thing
our
that
places.
it does. Michael, it might be surprising for you to know that when I stumbled upon this, I do a little computer programming, and so I told it to write me a PHP program that checks the validity of an email address for a submission form. Now that sounds pretty complicated, and it wrote it flawlessly for me. It gave me the code to do that. So it does a lot of interesting stuff. And when you talk about teachers, think about the math teacher. The student can go to this thing and they can say, here's my equation, solve it and show the work. And then they just copy it. So
Right.
now that everybody's learning, or many people are learning online, can you imagine the difficulty that's giving more than a few headaches for educators?
Same reason guys can't sign their name in cursive. We don't teach it.
Glenn, I've been reading articles on this AI, and one of them said that it can actually lie, that it only has, whatever information it's access to, that's what it uses. And if the information is not right, it will come up with the wrong answer. So you got garbage in, garbage out.
Fair point. Yeah, I mean, it's just I don't think we can claim it's thinking, right? It is just doing artificially the things that people do. Okay, well, maybe we've saved the best for last. Debbie, it's so good to have you again. You have to unmute yourself.
No pressure, Glenn. My gosh. I've completely changed what I was going to read today because I so enjoyed the bowling poem from Virginia, and it harkened back memories of my Midwestern upbringing and made me pull out an old one. So here it is. I better get some light. Either glasses or light, one or the other. Midwestern Corinthians. We were serious in '76, stumbling through life caked with orange clay and bliss. Hard-packed, mud-road teenagers, young with splinters forming in our eyes. We kissed each other, but never goodbye. Cranking up the cool, we wore scarves in the summer, coatless in bitter winter. We dared not shiver. Hooking up with one another, we hid in each other, while migrant teachers from the South tried to discern us from each other. Unbidden, unbounded, our wit we would lend, speaking with tongues of angels and men. We didn't report we were liars and leapers. Full of retort, we were smarter than our keepers. Kicked up a notch by the yellow promise of Jack's new javelin, piling in and transforming with the door click into red hot dudes and real hip chicks. Latter-day Saints we were, wizards and witches, flying over potholes deeper than ditches. Overhead, Motor City smokestacks spewed out our fate. Put the pedal down, fellow, we're already late. Any day of the week, one of us was standing there, bloodshot and satisfied in our daddy's crosshairs. Beaten and grounded, we refused to be pounded down. Patient for evening's shroud to come down. Creaking open windows, sliding rust lashes, grabbing up smokes and packets of matches, staggering through darkness towards the beam of headlights, for we walked by faith and not by sight. Thank you. And I have a 3-line. Thick-skinned and ripened, Let the oranges roll downhill, sweet and unbothered. And again, thick-skinned and ripened, excuse me. Let the oranges roll downhill, sweet and unbothered. And that came from a true story of watching two brothers slinging oranges at one another. But a few of them got away and they just looked so pretty.
There you go.
Like, they're the ones who got away. So anyway, that's it. Thank you.
Something tells me you were a handful as a daughter.
only to my dad. My mother understood me.
Well, thank you everyone so much for coming today to help end 2022. Good group as always, and great poetry, interesting conversation. I'm so glad we did this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy New Year, all.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy
Happy
New
New
Year.
Year.
Happy New Year, everybody. See you next
Happy
year.
New Year.
Happy
Yeah,
New
we'll
Don't
see
Year.
you
get in-
next year.
Listen, don't get into trouble till then. Now, come on.
I think he's talking to Debbie.
Year's on the way from
I've grown
here.
up quite a lot since then.
Bye, Francis. Bye,
Be
Carol.
safe and happy, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Next year. Bye,
Thank
Happy
you.
everyone.
joy.
Thank you,
Bye.
everybody.
Bye,
Love you.
Mary Gunn.
New Year.
Happy New Year. Thanks, James
You bet. See
and
you.
James.
Bye, Glenn.
Patrice,
Happy New Year
Carol,
to everyone.
Lynette, everybody. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.